Hey everyone, Cairo here at TCS Rockets. Today I'm going to be going over 4 limited archetypes for sealed in Core 21. Before we get into it, be sure to leave us a like and click the subscribe button down below. Additionally, for anyone who subscribes and leaves a comment, we're going to be giving away a box of Core 21, so don't miss your opportunity to win that. Alright, let's get into it. First up for our limited archetypes, we're looking at blue-red spells. We have a couple cards we want to talk about that really tie the archetype together. First up is Experimental Overload. Experimental Overload is a 4-mana sorcery, 2 a blue and a red, and it reads, create an XX blue and red wizard creature token, where X is the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. Then you may return an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Exile Experimental Overload. Very powerful card in the late game. Being able to make a large body and recurring one of your more powerful spells is nothing to sneeze at. Not only that, playing this card on turn 4 is not bad at all. Picking up a removal spell or a draw spell and then making a 2-2, a 3-3, or if you're lucky, even a 4-4 is a huge power play and is going to ensure that you are getting far ahead of your opponent and effectively winning the game. Next up, another 4-mana card is Goblin Wizardry. Goblin Wizardry is a 4-mana instant, 3 in a red, and it reads, create 2 1/1 red Goblin Wizard creature tokens with Prowess. For those of you who do not remember, Prowess is whenever you cast a non-creature spell, all Prowess creatures get +1/+1 until end of the turn. Goblin Wizardry is a very powerful instant. Important to point out that it is an instant because you can play it on your opponent's end step to make surprise creatures they did not know they were going to have to deal with. You can play it in combat to make surprise blockers, which is extremely powerful and limited and often is how you win the game. And not only that, not only are they just 1/1s, they're also 1/1s with prowess, meaning they get more and more valuable as the game goes on. Prowess creatures tend to hit for a lot when you finally decide to cash in all the spells you saved up in your hand, and making 2 at a time is very good. Finally, the last card that I think really seals the deal on blue-red spells is a reprint, and that is Rewind. Rewind is a 4-mana instant, 2/2 blue, and it reads, counter target spell, untap up to 4 lands. This card is very important for the blue-red spells archetype because it allows you to keep up a counter spell to answer your opponent's threats and then also establish board state by untapping your lands and casting another instant on your opponent's end step. Overall, I'm going to consider blue-red spells one of the more powerful archetypes of Core 21 Limited, and you should definitely pick up these 3 cards if you plan on playing that in your pre-release or even your draft. Next up for our Core 21 Limited archetypes, we are looking at Green-Black Sacrifice. Green-Black Sacrifice is going to be a very grindy archetype and will more likely than not have the most late game potential. The first card we're going to be looking at for this archetype is Twin Blade Assassins. Twin Blade Assassins is a 5-mana 5/4 costing 3 a black and a green. It has an ability that reads at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, draw a card. Very important to point out about this card, it does not say a creature you control, it says a creature, meaning it will count your opponent's creatures as well, giving much more value to our removal spells by allowing us to draw a card at the end of the turn. Very powerful card and is a very good glue for the black-green sacrifice archetype as a whole. Next up, we're going to be looking at Witch's Cauldron. Witch's Cauldron is a 1-mana artifact, and its ability is 1 a black, and we tap it to sacrifice a creature. We gain a life, and we draw a card. This is going to be very good at fogging our opponent's removal spells and chump blocking our opponent's large creatures by letting us sacrifice the target or the blocker to draw a card and gain a life, ensuring that we will always have more resources than our opponent. And honestly, this is the engine for the Green-Black Sacrifice deck and is almost needed to pull it off. Finally, we're going to be talking about Fungal Rebirth. Fungal Rebirth is a 3-mana instant that reads, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. If a creature died this turn, create 2 1/1 green sapperling creature tokens. This card is what really ties it all together. Being able to return the creature we sacrificed with Witch's Cauldron, or any creature that died to our opponent's removal, is a huge tempo swing in our favor. Not only that, making 2 1/1s is very good, and at a rate of 3 mana is powerful. Also, it says target permanent. It does not have to necessarily be any of our creatures. So if we have any valuable enchantments, a land that we need to hit, or even a planeswalker if we're lucky enough to open one, this will allow us to recur it. And being able to play a planeswalker 2 times in a game will almost ensure that you are going to win that game. Overall, Green-Black Sacrifice is going to be the most grindy archetype and will be very fun to play. If you plan on playing it, definitely pick up these 3 cards. The next limited archetype we are going to take a look at is Blue-White Flyers. Blue-White Flyers is a great way to be nice and aggressive while also having evasion, so our opponents cannot block our creatures. The first card we want to look at for Blue-White Flyers is Watcher of the Spheres. Watcher of the Spheres is a 2-mana 2/2, a white and a blue for a bird wizard with flying. It also reads, creatures with flying you cast cost 1 less. And whenever another creature with flying enters the battlefield under your control, Watcher of the Spheres gets +1/+1 until end of turn. This card is going to be absurd if you're able to play it on turn 2 and follow it up with a flyer every turn. Hitting your opponent for 3 in the air is a quick way to end the game and is very powerful. Overall, I say this is what birthed the Blue-White Flying archetype in Limited and is a cornerstone of the archetype. Next up, we are going to be looking at Lofty Denial. Lofty Denial is a 2-mana instant that reads, counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. If you control a creature with flying, counter that spell unless its controller pays 4 instead. In Limited, making your opponent pay 4 additional cost is huge. Limited tends to be a format full of 5 and 6 drops, so this card will be live even into the late game. Very powerful counterspell, and it is a huge incentive to play flyers. Finally, the last card I want to talk about for the Blue-White Flying archetype is Aven Gagglemaster. Aven Gagglemaster is a 5-mana 4/3 flyer that says when it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life for each creature with flying you control. It does count itself, so the worst this card could ever be is a 5-mana 4/3 flyer that gains you 2 life, which is not bad at all. However, more often than not, you'll have 2 to 3 flyers by the time you cast this guy, meaning you'll gain anywhere from 4 to 6 life, which is a great value. It allows you to be extra aggressive and allow your opponent to hit you and not really worry about it because you know you're going to play this guy and gain most of your life back anyways. Very powerful flyer and a great reason to play the Blue-White Flying archetype. Overall, I see this archetype being very aggressive, and you have cards like Lofty Denial as tempo counter spells to ensure your opponent cannot catch up. Flyers tend to be very powerful and limited, and this time around, it is no exception. The last archetype I want to talk about for Core 21 Limited is Red-Green Ramp. Red-Green Ramp is going to be all about getting a lot of mana into play early and then using that mana to play very large spells. The first card I want to talk about for this archetype is Leafkin Avenger. Leafkin Avenger is a 4-mana 4/3 costing 2, a red and a green, and it has 2 abilities. The first ability is add green to your mana pool for each creature you control with power 4 or greater, and its other ability is for 7 and a red. Leafkin Avenger does damage equal to its power to target player or planeswalker. Let's talk about that first ability for a second. At minimum, you'll be able to add 1 green mana to your mana pool because Leafkin Avenger does trigger itself. If you are able to get that to be even more mana, upwards of 2, 3, even 4, it is absurd. Being able to tap a single permanent for 4 mana will allow you to play almost any threat in your deck. Its second ability is very powerful as well because we can tap Leafkin Avenger for mana and then use that mana to activate its other ability. Doing minimum 4 damage to a planeswalker will almost always kill it in this limited format, and 4 damage to a player every turn is a very quick way to end the game. Leafkin Avenger is a great ramp card and should definitely be in your deck if you plan on playing this archetype. Next up, let's talk about Garruk's Uprising. Garruk's Uprising is a 3-mana enchantment costing 2 and a green, and it reads, when Garruk's Uprising enters the battlefield, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. Creatures you control have trample, and whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield, you also get to draw a card. This is going to be very important for the ramp deck, ensuring that you always have resources in your hand. It is going to be good at all stages of the game because more often than not will always let you draw a card in the late game or allow you to set up on turn 3 to have your 4-drop draw you a card. Very good at keeping resources in your hand and very powerful in the ramp deck. The last card I want to talk about for the red-green ramp archetype is Volcanic Geyser. Volcanic Geyser is X red and for an instant and reads do X damage to any target. Being able to instant speed do X damage to your opponent is very powerful, especially in a ramp build. This will sometimes outright end the game at instant speed or allow you to end step, hit them for a ton of damage, and then untap and finish the job with your creatures. Overall, the ramp deck is super solid and looks like a ton of fun. I will personally be playing this one at any opportunity I get in Core 21 Limited. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you all next time. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like. And if you have any other recommendations, comment them down below. Take it easy.